Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Gooey's Dungeon Dive, the podcast where I, Gooey, rank every dungeon in The Legend of Zelda. And today we are continuing our quest to free the maidens in the Dark World and taking on the Swamp Palace. One prerequisite item we need before tackling this dungeon is the flippers. Now, we could have grabbed these earlier in the game if we wanted to, but regardless, we have to journey up to Zora's waterfall. We have to combat a horde of Zora that pop out of the water and attack you, and eventually get to their king, who you can pay to receive the flippers. Now, this is a very useful tool for navigating the Swamp Palace because it allows us to swim, very fitting. Now, the Swamp Palace can be found in what is called the Plains of Ruin, in the southern portion of the Dark World, and before we can even truly enter it, we have to do a little puzzle here that is described in the Nintendo's player guide. When explorers entered the Swamp Palace, they were unable to cross the empty indoor canal because of its steep, sheer sides. The key to getting to the other side was understanding the connection between the light and dark worlds. Standing just outside of the palace, adventurers would warp to the light world water gate, pull the switch inside, allowing the water to flow. Then they would return to the Swamp Palace in the Dark World and swim across the water-filled canal. So yeah, I mean, if you go in, you can't get past the canal, as they say, and there's a telepathic tile here that tells you that things in the Light World and Dark World can affect each other if changed. I love this concept in the game because it's kind of obscure and mystical. The mystery of that I don't ever really get, but it's fitting because it's like a mirror world, and it's cool to see it used here, like in a dungeon. So you do actually have to get the water flowing in the nearly identical building in the Light World, then return to the Dark Palace to progress. I love that you can actually enter the Light World building really early on in the game. It's like a cool tease, and there's like some little treasures in there too. And yeah, it's a cool way to make the world feel more whole. It's also a cool continuation of like the parallel designs between the Eastern and Dark Palace, you know, with the whole mirror world concept. This also sets the stage for the strong navigational theme of this dungeon, which is water. And here's another quote: "Warrior washout. It is believed that the canals in the Swamp Palace were built as a safety measure. If enemy warriors attempted to cross the canals and steal the palace's treasures, the residents could pull a switch, fill or drain the canals, and keep away the intruders. When the dam broke, the empty canals were impossible to cross because the ladders were out of reach and obstacles often blocked the way. Adventurers sought out switches that they could let the water flow." This introduces what will become an iconic staple in Zelda dungeon design, which is raising and lowering the water level. Navigationally, it's a little bit more straightforward. It's closer to like the Eastern Palace, but it's a little bit more complex. And as you progress, you always kind of hit a roadblock from these empty canals, and you have to find a way to fill them and then swim forward to the new area. You do this a little bit, and then it comes to a big open room with a large chest in the center where you can really only go one way, other than like a small detour for the compass, and you kind of continue heading down another wing of the dungeon, completing another set of water level puzzles. Now, I think the linearity works well here for this type of puzzle because you'll kind of see yourself weaving back and forth between the path forward and the obstacle blocking it, and, you know, getting to like the switches to pull to raise the water level in a very satisfying way. And you always kind of see like, you know, another path that'll show you the way forward, but then you got to go around, you know, make your path, make the water come so you have a path. So it's like kind of a satisfying loop. Each time the like kind of puzzle to change the water level is slightly unique from the last one. It keeps it interesting, you know. It's not just I gotta find the thing again, you know. It does have that sort of like puzzle motif or whatever that later Zelda games also use very strongly. So after some, you know, water level puzzling and another classic fall down the hole to get to the lower floor bit, you get the big key, which you can bring back to that main chamber, open that big chest, and it'll give you the hook shot which lets us go down like the final path of the dungeon. The water theme, is still pretty strong here. There's like water to drain. There's some waterfalls that have like secret paths behind them that are really cleverly done. And there's even like this room where it has like a water current that you have to kind of swim with and against. Just some other smaller cool concepts. This dungeon also does a good job of having like enemies that fit the water vibe. There's the Bari, which are like jellyfish. Kiameron, which are like little water bubble things. Pyrogusu. I can't pronounce these guys, but there are these little, like, I don't know if they're fish or something, but they swim in the water. And then we get introduced, I believe, to the classic water tektite, which we'll be seeing again. They're like bugs that can kind of float around on the water. And this all culminates to the final boss, Argus, who is a big old jellyfish surrounded by smaller little creatures they have to clear away using the hook shot. It's kind of a classic Zelda formula here. Get the item, use it. But I love this fight. It's challenging enough. You have to try and avoid the attacks of the creatures when they spin around. And when you remove them, you then have to dodge Argus as he keeps falling from the ceiling and, splashing water and running around. You can kind of hit him with your sword or some weapons. Again, there's some, There's some freedom here that is nice that this game always affords to you. So, good stuff. And yeah, after we beat him, we free the second Maiden. This Maiden, she tells you about the Triforce granting wishes and, just some more lore here. So, they tell you they hid the Triforce because of its power to grant wishes away in the Golden Land, and everyone forgot about it. And Ganondorf was able to find it. So, just kind of more backstory here. Kind of cool stuff, though. He tells you, too, about other warp tiles that you can use, like the one in Death Mountain to go to the Dark World, which, after this, we're going to be encountering dungeons where you have to do that more to get to the dungeon, if that makes sense. So far it's been a little bit more of just find the dungeon in the Dark World, but now it's going to step up from here. So all in all, a really good dungeon, I think. Thematically, very strong. It's one of these first true elemental dungeons we've been kind of talking about. We're seeing it finally take shape, I think, more so than the Desert Palace. Navigationally, I think it works how it is, like more linear. I'm not gonna, I think every Zelda game should have a mix, and this is like a great example of a linear dungeon too. For me, I prefer Palace of Darkness still. I love the kind of complexity and how you really gotta scratch your head to figure out some of the navigation there, but it's not too bad. I would have Swamp Palace just below it, but just barely, because thematically it's so strong too. So they're kind of fighting for 1 and 2 right there, but I have to put it at number 2. We'll see though. I think there are other dungeons I like more than it. But do I like it more than Palace of Darkness? Probably. But that's gonna be it for today. Here's my top dungeon so far. A Link to the Past, dominating, especially now we're in the Dark World. So yeah, thanks everyone for following along. We're gonna be journeying through the Dark World some more next week, so I'll see you then.